Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan F. It's great to be with everybody again this week. Uh, Line of Scrimmage, new episode. As you can see to my left or right, whichever way
Yeah,
you're looking at the screen, is a new addition here, Corey Parson. Uh, Obviously, a Yankees fan.
yeah.
um, Corey, how the hell are you, man?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. Despite what I'm saying, the fortunes of where the Steinbrenners have taken the once great organization in the Boogie Down Bronx. You know what I'm saying? So interesting to be quiet. The stadium dark this time of year. You know what I mean? But still got other stuff going on too. So hopefully the evil empire returns. I see you rocking that Florida Gator, huh?
I am. I'm a Florida Gator guy. So,
Nice win last week. You know what I'm saying? That right there, I thought was going to be a loss for you guys. Coming in to Willie B on the road in that environment, I thought for sure that Carolina would be able to pull that one out, right? And then you just see the complete collapse down the stretch. You know what I'm saying? Blowing a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, and then I don't know if you heard this. Shane Beamer will be on the sidelines this weekend with a broken foot from
yep.
I believe kicking a cooler after the
Mhm.
game. You know what I'm saying? So he's showing that he's passionate. I tell you what, though, that Gamecock program, I think they were a little ahead of schedule last year, and I think reality is going to be setting in through the back end of this season because they got to go on the road for Texas. They got to go on the road, and that's very difficult to do in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, it is. We'll see what happens with him at the end of the year. I'm not so sure he's going to be the coach.
You think
So
they'll get rid of him already?
In today's college football, it's what have you done for me lately? I know they had a decent season last year, but with Texas and Oklahoma coming in next year, it just I
They
think
go
that
to they go to Tuscaloosa and Baton Rouge next year. They always play and Clemson. They always play the toughest schedule in the country. The recruiting has been very good. I think the defensive coordinator goes. I think Shane's got some rope.
yeah. So what we're gonna do is obviously no real big surprises last week as far as I was concerned. There were four games that caught my interest. Need to talk about one. USC, Notre Dame. I said this last week. I picked Notre Dame to win this football game. Just USC's defense is just not up to par. It's awful. It's horrendous. Um, Now, did I expect 48-20? No, but Caleb Williams looked horrible. Notre Dame had him confused. Uh, did his Heisman back-to-back Heisman Trophy, go out the window? Probably more than likely. We'll still see where it goes from here, but he was 23 of 37, only 199 yards. He had the touchdown, but he had the three picks that were costly. Notre Dame with a nice bounce back. Um, Hartman was pedestrian. He was 13 of 20, 126 yards and two touchdowns. They ran the ball effectively. They played solid defense. And again, like I said, USC, the pack zero, as I call it, because we don't know what it's going to be. They don't play defense in the Pac Zero, and I knew
Mhm.
eventually, the Pac Zero, as the season goes on, they eventually beat one another up. Now Washington is obviously now the clear cut favorite in the Pac Zero, but I don't know what your take on this game was, Corey. I just felt like going into the game, USC's lack of defense was eventually going to catch up with them somewhere.
Yeah, I was on Notre Dame. You know what I'm saying? Despite Notre Dame coming off that tough loss versus Louisville, and then that loss that you can pin on the coach in the game against Ohio State, they should be in college football playoff contention. But that's not going to be the case, as a two-loss independent. But I thought they would get the job done last week. I didn't think 48-20 would be the score. Interesting to see Williams, though, really have the worst game of his collegiate career. So you want to see how he bounces back coming up this week. So I thought that was tough to see Williams perform like that. Our thoughts of being the first person since Archie Griffin to win back-to-back Heisman's. I think that you can kind of put that behind us now, unless they figure out a way to be a Pac-12 champion or a Pac-0 champion, as you said. So I think that's going to be difficult. Well, with that being said, though, I still think they'll be in the mix in the Pac-12 down the stretch. But I just find it to be. I think what's happening at USC, what Riley's trying to do and put it together, it'll probably be his next quarterback that he makes the run on, because this season is kind of becoming an ode to what is going to happen next spring when Caleb Williams enters the NFL draft. you not only you first of all you're going to have this back end of the season is going to be an all-time tank job for NFL teams to try to position themselves to get a player who's already said he's going to choose where he's going to play for. Now he's asking for steak right out the gate. He wants steak right out the gate, and I'm like, oh boy, you ain't win nothing yet, son. You ain't even play nothing yet. Don't get me wrong. I think he's QB1. I think he is probably generational talent. He's Patrick Mahomes, or maybe even better. He's better than a lot of quarterbacks in the league right now. I think that's going to be a fascinating storyline down the stretch. You know what I'm saying, Ryan? But as far as this team goes, I think they could be in a little bit of trouble. I think this is a 2 or 3 loss team.
Yeah, I mean, the defense all year long. It started with the opener against San Jose State. San
Yeah,
Jose State had them on the ropes early. USC had a great second half, but you saw it against Colorado. Colorado was down 48-20, and then all of a sudden Colorado comes storming back. Again, just don't trust the defense. We'll see where both these programs go. Like I said, we both had Notre Dame winning last week. So next game that I took a look at that was, Alabama 24, Arkansas 21. Arkansas is a little bit better than that 2-5 record.
yeah,
Again, Alabama had them on the ropes. It was 24-6. They sort of let the foot off the gas a little bit. No turnovers in the game, which was a pleasant surprise. As much hitting that was going on out there, but both teams ran the fall effectively. Milroe for Alabama, you know what you're going to get with him now. I thought he had a decent game. KJ Jefferson for Arkansas, about the same kind of game, but Arkansas ran the ball 36 times for 100 yards. Alabama pounded the rock, 42 carries for 177 yards. This was sort of like Nick Saban's old style way of
yeah.
winning football games. Pound the rock, play solid defense, don't turn the ball over, but a little bit friggin' closer than I think anybody possibly imagined.
Yeah, I still think you got to look at this as a tough conference. This is still a growing team that's starting to come together. Now, I think what you're seeing though, like I would look at the futures market. You could probably get Alabama right now in the 15 to 20 to 1 range to win the whole thing. I actually think that's a good bet. Milroe is starting to come together, and another thing that you're seeing with Bama is that you didn't see last year uh, was there was no explosive plays in the passing game last year, and that kind of hurt them when they got into some bigger time matchups. This year, the explosive plays are back in the passing game with Burton doing his thing. And what's the other cat name? Is Burton and Isaiah Burton and whatever. They got two big good wide receivers. You know what I'm saying? Burton and somebody else. And
Prentice,
nah, it's not him. It's Burton.
Prentice, Burton. Let's see, Niblack, Brooks, Bond, McClellan,
Bond,
Benson.
Burton and Bond. So
Okay.
Burton and Bond have brought the explosive passing plays back to the offense. Milroe is hitting those passes now. They have the advantage of having their tougher opponents come to Tuscaloosa down the stretch. Yeah, I think they're squarely back in the mix this year.
Yeah, I mean, they have sort of a stranglehold on the SEC West right now. They've already beaten Mississippi. Um, they've handed Mississippi their only loss. LSU doesn't look like they'll be able to beat Bama. Bama's going to have revenge on their mind. So, will they beat Georgia in an SEC championship game? I don't
I
know.
I I think they do this year. I don't think I don't think this is an undefeated SEC championship caliber team for Georgia this year. I think the Tennessee the trip to Neyland could be trouble, and I think this thing really gets interesting with the CFP this year because I think that Bama beats them in the SEC championship game.
That's a bold statement, my
And
friend.
then what
Bold.
do you do? And then who do you leave out? Because what you have to take a one loss Georgia looking for a three-peat. You have to put them in. One loss SEC champion has to go as well.
Well, look what happened with the Big Ten last year. I mean,
Yeah.
Nobody thought Ohio State was going to sneak back in, but I mean, they did. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the SEC puts two in. So, uh, another game that I took at this was the surprise for me of the weekend. Louisville on the road goes to Pitt. The story of this game was Louisville turned it over three times. Their offense didn't look all that great. Defensively, they were okay. Pat Narduzzi with Pitt, they know how to play defense. But this Louisville, as good as Louisville's looked all year long,
Yeah.
they looked atrocious against Pitt. Jack Plummer, he threw the ball 52 times for 350 yards. He had a touchdown, but he threw the two picks. I did not see this coming at all. I thought Louisville would run it to 7-0. They haven't. We'll see how this affects the team. Pitt now 2-4. This might elevate them to a little bit better season because once you get a win like this, it normally breeds all that confidence. But I thought other than North Carolina and Florida State, I thought Louisville would probably be a player for the ACC title. But with this loss now, um, Louisville has to regroup now a little bit.
Louisville's still in a pretty good spot. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, the Pitt loss is tough, but the toughest thing to do in college football, in college sports, in big time college sports, period, is to win on the road in conference. You watch college basketball season. It doesn't make a difference whose stadium you go into. You can catch an L, no matter how highly ranked team you are, especially at night and the co-eds is good and loaded. You can forget about it. You know what I'm saying? And that was the case kind of with Pitt. You go on the road in conference and then you have to take a loss like that. That's what it can happen. But they only go on the road once more this season, and that's when they go to Miami, and that's a disaster right now. They have the advantage of having Duke at home. I think Duke's a real frisky team. So I think they're in a pretty good spot, and Pittsburgh could be able to fight back into this thing too.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have partner Doozy, he's the defensive genius. He comes up with schemes. I know they've had a little bit of a rough year, but maybe this will propel them to, you only need 6 wins to be bowl eligible. So
Mm-hmm.
I think a success for Pitt at this point would be like a 7-5 sort of season, going to a decent bowl game somewhere along the line, and maybe winning the bowl game.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah,
um,
Pitt
yeah,
Gasparilla Bowl. Pitt will gladly take
yeah,
Gasparilla. Any the
yeah,
closer to Christmas, the better.
yeah,
Or or even if you can get on the other side of Christmas, then you had a real good season.
yeah. The other game, this was the game of the week for me. This is the one that I watched. Obviously, Washington, Oregon. Um, obviously, everybody's talking about Dan Lanning and that call at midfield on the fourth down where, just punt the ball inside the 15-yard line and make him go the distance to beat you. And they didn't. It backfired on him. It was a great, as far as this matchup goes, this was a great football game. You had
Yeah.
everything you wanted. It was up and down. It was back and forth. The emotion. Penix had a great game. I thought Bo Nix played really well. Oregon, my God, they ran the ball for 40 times for 204 yards.
Yeah.
You do that kind of damage in the
Supposed to
running game,
win the game.
you're supposed to win the game. But again, Lanning came out and said that this loss was his fault. I sort of agree with him on that point. You know what I mean? So again, you're at midfield. There's not a lot of time left. Punt the ball. Make them drive the length of the field to beat you. And if they do, kudos to you. But just a back and forth game, Corey. I thought it was, and again,
Fantastic so
yeah,
far.
Washington.
Yep.
Washington to me now is the clear cut favorite to win the Pac-0 championship.
Yeah, and I won't go that far yet because that schedule coming down the stretch gets very tough. Listen, you don't think too much of Washington State, but those kind of rivalry games like that become very difficult to deal with. And then when you look at the rest of their schedule, besides that rivalry game, they got that 4 game stretch coming down where they have to go to USC, they're home at Utah, they go to Oregon State, then they close it off, with their rivalry game in Washington State. Imagine Washington State coming there with a chance to ruin them as a chance to go to the college football playoff. But the critical matchup is what happens when Utah comes into that building
Right.
later on this year. I think Utah is a sleeping giant right now. You can't go into Utah and win. That's one of the best home environments in college football that nobody talks about. That's a very difficult place to win at. And one thing about Utah is they have a good defense, and good defenses can go on the road. Now, ultimately, I think it's a 3-team race. I think Utah can find a way to get in there, but I would not be surprised if the Pac-12 championship is Washington and Oregon for a trip to the CFP.
Right. And again, we can't. Utah's still tough, like you said.
Yeah,
So
Utah's
let's.
tough, and Utah has to go on the road too. But Utah defense travels better than offense.
All right. So we're gonna put last weekend behind us. We're now gonna go to the top 25 for this week, the breakdown of the games, and then after the top 25 breakdown, give the money picks. So let's go to the top 25. So I have 20 number 25 you at no sorry number 25 UCLA at Stanford. UCLA with the loss last week. Stanford with that come from behind victory against Colorado. The spread 17. UCLA's favored by 17 on the road. Again, a big win for Stanford. UCLA coming off the loss. This is kind of it's kind of a dicey game for me because Stanford's at home and you don't know how UCLA is going to react. But I still think UCLA has more talent on both sides of the football. 17 is kind of a high number for me. Do they cover? I don't know. I still think UCLA goes on the road and gets the
I
victory.
always be very wary of last game, last broadcast of the game, last night broadcast,
Right.
laying the favorite on that game. Be
Mm-hmm.
very careful of that because that game is set up for you to chase the money you lost today. And when you chase, you run after the favorite. It's kind of like Monday Night Football. Bet the underdog on prime time if you're going to do it. I probably would hop on that under. Now, UCLA's this quarterback, Dante Moore, this kid is real good. But all of a sudden, he's starting to throw a lot of interceptions now,
Yeah.
and that's unacceptable. But I wouldn't, I wouldn't take 17 with Stanford, but I wouldn't lay it. I wouldn't lay it either. It'd probably be a no play for me if I'm chasing. I just have to get it back on Sunday.
Yeah, like I said, huge win for Stanford because Colorado had them on the ropes.
Yeah,
Stanford obviously came back in the second half. A win like this might propel them to, they were 1-4. They're
yeah.
staring 1-5 in the face. A win like this might gain their confidence a little bit
And
and boost their
what's so
confidence.
interesting about this is any other coach would have been crucified this week. And don't get me wrong, Prime got crucified a little bit, but normally you be calling for somebody's job after that happens. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
obviously Prime has already got over his win total, so bowl eligibility is next.
Next game, we have number 24, Iowa. They are home against Minnesota. The spread's 3.5. Iowa at home. Iowa's just they're beat up, but did you see the game against Wisconsin last week? What a defensive battle that was like smash mouth, old time Big Ten football. Again, Iowa beat up. They're probably going to win their division in the Big Ten. I know they've got some tough games to end the season and whatnot. But Minnesota, PJ Fleck, they're sort of like in flux right now. You really don't know what they are. A lot of people in Minnesota are starting to get a little disgruntled with where the program is. They thought maybe that the program would be a little bit more elevated to like I'm not going to say
And
top of the
they overachieved early. They overachieved, and now
yeah,
the chickens are coming home to roost. I'm just going to take the under. You know what I'm saying? I don't handicap the two teams enough. You know what I'm saying? It's not enough offense. You know what I'm saying? A
yeah.
13-10. You know what I'm saying? A 17-10 sounds like, but this is going to end up at somewhere 16-12, somewhere like that. So I'm on the under in this one right here. Not no real offense for that NBC game.
Yeah, I just think Iowa, Kay McNamara gets hurt. He's gone for the year. But again, with Ferentz, it's don't turn the ball over, fundamentals, and let's play fantastic defense.
Yep.
That's always been his MO. Again, I'm like you. This is going to be like a 17-13, 15-10 kind of game. So
Yep.
this is going to be a defensive battle. Um, Next on the slate, we had number 23 Tulane home against North Texas. The spread is 20. Everybody knows who's followed Tulane football over the last couple of years. We know the kind of season they had last year. They beat USC in the bowl game. Of course, Williams got hurt that game. North Texas, really don't know too much about them, but this has blowout
They
written all
cover the
over it.
spread. That's all you need to know. They cover
Yeah,
the spread. They're a
yeah.
spread covering machine, North Texas. They're always tremendously undervalued. Now, do I like them at this spot on the road? I probably won't make my card this Saturday, but North Texas is a team that I would not lay the number against because they tend to cover spreads very well.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm
is
on
Tulane the best Group of Five team again this year, or is it Air Force?
Air Force is a notch above them. Air
Air
Force
Force
has
is going to play in a big bowl game this year. That's going to be fun to see.
yeah. I'm on the flip side with Tulane this week. I just think Tulane.
You think they hammered them, huh?
I think so. At
Okay.
home, I
Yeah.
just think at home. Yeah. Next game, like Corey just said, Air Force undefeated. They're at Navy. Air Force is favored by 10.5 on the road. Navy, of course, they're sort of like in flux with a new regime, new coaching staff, still trying to find their identity. Air Force has something going.
Yeah.
They just continue to win. And again, I see, you know what Navy is? They run the ball, they throw it like twice a
And
game.
then off, and then it's not. This is Air Force has seen this before. You know what I'm saying? Air Force is going to hammer them.
Yeah, I'm sort of in agreement. I just think Navy doesn't stand a chance. Of course, they're going to be up just because it's
It's
military
that
against,
that military thing.
but
But
it doesn't matter.
that stadium in Annapolis, don't be surprised if that stadium is half empty.
Yeah, Navy will hang around for like a quarter and a half, and then Air Force will just like
Yeah.
pull away. And then we have number 20 Missouri. They're hosting South Carolina. Mizzou's favored by 7 at home. So Vegas giving South Carolina a little bit of love. So, but I don't know, man. Coming off that loss to Florida in the fashion that it happened, um, Mizzou, we all know what Missouri does. I
Yeah.
mean, Mizzou is Mizzou, and I think Mizzou covers. It's hard. Anybody who's ever played football or basketball or any type of sport, when you lose the kind of game that South Carolina did last week,
There
it is
you go. Do
hard to
you
get back.
remember? But if you remember last year, after a disgusting loss to Florida, that's when they went on that streak.
Right.
That's when they went on that streak, and that's how they had that ended up in the Gator. They ran that streak all the way to the Gator Bowl and had
Mhm.
a lead on Notre Dame in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Here's the thing though: bad offensive lines don't travel, and they have a bad offensive line. Now
Yeah.
it played better last week, and they're going to take that group on the road this week. But the thing about it is, at home it's better. It's always better at home. Now, you know, I also think this is a fade to public spot. I can see that too. The toughest thing to do when you're betting on these games is to forget what your eyes just saw. And last week we saw Missouri go on the road in the SEC and win, and we saw South Carolina lose at home.
Mhm.
I would take the 7 with South Carolina, but Missouri wins the game.
Yeah. It's SEC games are like middle of the tier teams in the SEC.
On
It's
the
like
road, it's
it's
tough.
yeah, it's tough. So, um, then we get to LSU. They're ranked 19th. They are home against Army. LSU's favored by 31. Um, yeah,
Can we go to the next game?
yeah. Um, Tell you what, though, LSU's defense is
Terrible.
struggling
Yeah,
this year. They're terrible.
terrible. Yeah, that's
Um,
this was a team I thought would be a national championship team, but
yeah,
they will let somebody put 50 points on them, and it's not it's not. Here's the thing: LSU's schedule boils down to to their trip to Tuscaloosa, right?
yeah.
And Alabama's not going to be able to score with them. But I think Alabama can get some stops in their building with revenge on the mind. This week they should roll, but LSU has their season ahead of them. So this week right here, they just got to try to hold serve. And listen, you bring Army down there. Thank God it's not in the daytime. You got to burn those kids up in that Louisiana heat. You know what I'm saying? But they have a bye, and then they got to go to Tuscaloosa. That's what it's all about for LSU. They should roll, but I wouldn't lay. I mean, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't mind laying that number. They probably kill them.
I mean, if you can't hammer Army at home,
I would lay the
I
first
mean,
half. What's the first half? 15, something like that. 20, no, probably 15 or 14. I would definitely lay the first half.
yeah. I mean, I'm LSU. If you can't hammer Army at home, and Army is not, I mean, they're not a great football team, but the way LSU's defense has been playing this year, I don't know if I would. I don't know. 31's kind of a high number with the way this defense is playing. So,
Yeah.
um, So the next game I have on tap here, we've got this is one of the games I'll be interested in. Number 14 Utah at number 18 USC.
Yeah.
USC's favored by 7. Um, I have a gut feeling now, Corey, that Cam Rising is not going to play this year.
No, Cam Rogers is not going to play this year. I agree with you on that one. But this right here, this right here is an upset in the making right here. I think Utah goes in there and gets a straight up win over the Trojans. I really do. I don't like the way USC looks right now. I think last week was just like kind of a tip of the iceberg. They went to 3 overtimes with Arizona. You saw how they let Colorado come back versus them. They haven't played well really in the month of October. And now you're bringing Utah is tough. You know what I'm saying? Utah kind of plays like a SEC team. Utah is going to come in and try to win the game, and I think they do it. I think they do it. I'm on Utah.
Yeah, so am I. I just don't. USC's defense is horrible. Again, Utah, you know what Kyle Whittingham's going to do. Don't turn the. He's like Kirk Ferentz. Don't turn the ball over. Play sound fundamentals. We're going to play hard defense. We're going to be in the football game. So,
Yep.
I'm in agreement. I think now USC's favored by 7. So maybe somebody knows something that I don't. And maybe it's just because of the home field advantage.
I'm gonna look at
But
some
I just,
splits. So I'm gonna
I
pull up
just
some
think
splits for that game right quick. Because you now that you mentioned that, I want to see what the numbers are looking like at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Let me see if I can just pull these up right quick. You know what I'm
Utah's
saying?
defense is just too tough. I was surprised that they lost at Washington State, to be quite honest with you. But
Hmm.
we all see what Washington State's done the last 2 games that they played, and they've sort of cooled off now too. So, but I just see it's going to be a close game. Don't get me wrong. Utah does not. They don't have that potent offense that maybe USC does. But I think Utah will put the clamps on in the second half.
You really right now you're seeing heavy betting on USC. Interesting to see if this number goes to 7.5. But if it was to go to 7.5, everybody would come in and jump on that 7.5 with Utah. I actually think this number could come down. I think this could close 6.5. So I'm gonna stick with Utah.
Okay. Then we have number 13 Old Miss. They are traveling to Auburn. The
Auburn
spread
is
six.
horrible.
Yeah, Ole Miss favored by 6.5. So again, SEC giving the home team like a little bit of love there. Um, Ole Miss's only loss was to Alabama. I think Ole Miss has a little something rolling. They've got to keep pace with Alabama because they've already lost to them. So and both teams have only one loss, and the
Yeah.
tiebreaker was to Alabama. So I think Ole Miss knows what they have to do now. They know what's in front of them in case Alabama slips up. Auburn, I understand that they're trying to gain a new identity under a new coach, um, but Ole Miss again too much on both sides of the football. I think Ole Miss goes in there and gets a sound victory. So
Listen, I think so too. Like I agree with what you say. Don't put it past Ole Miss to lay a dud though, but I really don't think Auburn has enough to take advantage of it.
yeah, I just again, Ole Miss knows what they have to do to keep pace with Alabama because if they don't, if they slip up one more time,
It's
they're
over.
probably not. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably
but
not.
but when you look at the schedule though, you know what I'm saying. It's still a trip to Georgia on that schedule.
Right, and we don't know
No,
what's
no.
happening with Brock Bowers
Brock
for
Bowers
Georgia.
having, I believe he's having surgery.
Yeah, so and there's no timetable on his return, so that might play into Ole Miss's hands a little bit. So
That could. He definitely is their most dynamic playmaker. That's their go-to guy when they need a big play. Like I say, I don't think Georgia's an undefeated SEC team this year, but I doubt if Lane Kiffin come in there and do it though.
okay. Next game we got, and this is another one, the big one in the SEC. We have number 17 Tennessee going to number 11 Alabama. Bama favored by 9 at home. I can't get a read on this game, Corey. I really can't. I want to take Tennessee. I really do. But again, Alabama, revenge on their mind. Nick Saban's been in these games time and time again. I, you know,
Nine
I
is too
thought,
big of nine is too big of a number, but Alabama wins the game. I would take the 9 with Tennessee, but Alabama probably win the game somewhere in the 28-20 range.
yeah, I mean, I picked Texas A&M against Bama a couple weeks ago,
Hmm.
got burned. Um, so yeah, I just don't see how Tennessee goes into Tuscaloosa and gets the win.
No,
It can be close. It's going
yeah,
to be close. this is like a 30-23 kind of
Yeah,
game for me.
something in that number right there. I think it happens. But yeah, but what you see is Alabama going deep down the football field again. That's how their offense really gets to clicking. And when you see that, they're really playing on their game right. And I'm not that impressed with Joe Milton going on the road in Tuscaloosa. That's going to be very tough. 3:30 CBS, the pageantry.
Yeah, and again, it's you can see what Nick Saban is starting to do, and that's pound the rock. Just quarterback don't make turnovers,
Yeah,
and that defense is now starting to gel. They're figuring it out. So
yeah.
then we have number 10 North Carolina. They're hosting Virginia. The spread's 23.5. I'm going to tell you something. People better not sleep on North Carolina as being a possible college football playoff contender. That defense is so improved over where it's been the last couple years under Gene Chizik.
That's
Like
interesting.
Drake May is balling out now. Virginia's terrible. I just think this has blowout written all over it. I'm taking UNC big. This has got like 40-13 written all over it.
Yeah, I think UNC rolls as well. I mean, to be honest with you, you know what I'm saying? The Cavaliers, really, the fact that they got a football field of the football team and got them on the field this year, after the events of last season, is impressive in itself. And then when you talk about the Tar Heels, listen, it's Georgia Tech, it's Campbell, and maybe for the first time ever, we're going to have a North Carolina Duke college football game that's going to mean something. That's going to be a lot of fun. Normally that Tobacco Road showdown is meant for the basketball hardwood, but they still got to go to Clemson and the rivalry game with NC State, but a potential North Carolina Florida State ACC championship game is very interesting.
Yeah, that would be. So next game on the slate, number 9 Oregon. They are hosting Washington State. Oregon's favored by 20. Uh, Washington State is starting to slip a little bit, and you can see it. They got hammered by Arizona last week. They looked absolutely disgusting last week. I know Arizona is a tough out, and they've proved it all year long, but Oregon's going to be in a foul mood. Washington State going on the road. Do I think Washington State's going to keep it close for a while? Probably, but I think in the second half, Oregon pulls away.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. This is a big bounce back spot for Oregon. That Washington State quarterback, Cam Moore, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
He's kind of struggled the past couple of weeks, but he's a dude. When next season starts, he's going to be at least a top 5 Heisman Trophy candidate. He's a very good quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Washington State, again, their defense for the first 4 games of the year, they were unbelievable.
Yeah,
Last 2 games, not so much. Now you have to go, into Eugene against that offense. You had the game against Arizona, and you made
yeah,
Arizona's offense look
yeah,
like Washington or Oregon. So
yeah. That
yeah,
was a bad look right there. They got to do a better job than that.
yeah. And then we have number 8 Texas. They are going to Houston. It is spreads 23.5. Again, I know Texas had to bye a week. Coming off that loss to Oklahoma, how's Texas going to respond? Houston, I still don't know what Houston's all about. This should be a good bounce back for Texas, but losing to your rival, Red River Shootout, I expect Texas to struggle for a little while in this game until they get it going. But Texas, again, too much talent on both sides of the ball for Houston to handle. Texas will win it. Do they cover the 23.5? Probably not.
I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Dana Holgerson is a terrible ATS head coach, and you see why when you watch him coach. But what I will say is this: this is a home game. This is a home game for Texas. They should go in there and mop them up right quick.
Yeah.
That'd be a
Next,
great basketball game.
they would.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Then we have number 6 Oklahoma. They're hosting UCF.
That's as high as
Spread.
they got after that win, huh? It's number 6.
Yeah.
They getting
Spread
set.
is
They getting set up. They getting set up to be disappointed.
uh spreads 19. UCF, a tough football team. Again, Oklahoma, I think they're coming off a bye as well. So again, how's Oklahoma going to respond? You're always going to have a letdown after a big win. It always happens. Do I think Oklahoma will probably let down for the first quarter and a half until like they have an epiphany and say, "Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
this is
that's
the
right. We
fourth.
got to start playing football again." So
This is a fourth quarter game. Oklahoma rolls them in the fourth quarter.
yeah, I agree. Uh, then another one, big one in the ACC. Number 4, Florida State is hosting number 16, Duke. Spread is 14 and a half. Again, Florida State now in the national title picture. They know what they have to do. But I'll tell you what, this Duke isn't your grandma or your grandfather's Duke.
No, but you're lucky you catch him in Tallahassee. That is the key right here. Is you got him in Tallahassee. They
Okay.
still going to give Florida State hell. You know
I
what I'm
think they are
saying?
too.
They're going to
Yeah.
give Florida State hell. Florida State's going to win the game, but Duke is going to give it Florida State everything that they can handle. I think the Seminoles are the best team in college football right now, and I think they're an eventual. I think they're an eventual national champion this year. But this right here is going to be a very, very hotly contested contest.
Yeah, after the way I saw Duke perform against Notre Dame at home, um, I know they lost the football game, but they're tough. They're fundamentally sound. Florida State is not going to blow them out by any mean. Does Florida State win because it's in Tallahassee? Absolutely. But Duke is going to keep this closer than what most people think.
I
So,
agree with you 100% on that one. And then you look at what they did to Clemson. Duke, that was it wasn't as close as the score indicated.
yeah. Then the big one of the weekend. We've got number 3, Ohio State, hosting Penn State. Ohio State's favored by 4.5. For me, this is basically a pickup game. I
Yeah,
said a month ago the way the teams were currently constructed, that Ohio State would not win this football game. Ohio State has played better, but I am going to go with Penn State in this game, Corey. You know why? That defense that Penn State has is absolutely unbelievable, and it travels on the road. I know people are like, well, Penn State really hasn't played anybody. They played UMass last week, and Ohio State's been in a couple of tough games. I don't care. This is going to be one of those knockdown, drag them out kind of games again. But I think Penn State's defense on the road travels, and I'm not going to say it's an upset. It's really not an upset, but I've got Penn State going on the road and winning outright.
I think this is a final possession game that Ohio State's win. I'll take the 4.5 with Penn State. I think this is a last possession game won by the Buckeyes, but I think Penn State fights to the end. I think Penn State is very intriguing. If they can get this, if they can get this, right, they're going to be in a good spot. But here's the thing: don't be surprised if they get this. They could get tripped up in College Park. I think Maryland's going to is going to knock somebody off at some point this year.
I don't really like the way Maryland's looked like the last couple of games, though. I mean, they're
Yeah,
still having a good season, but
yeah.
and then we have number 2 Michigan. They've got to go to East Lansing and Michigan State. The spread's 24. We all know with the story with
It'll be a fight, before the game start, and when the game start, it won't be much of a competition.
no. I mean, it's we all know what's going on in Michigan State. It's been in the news. So, and
Did that guy get? I haven't really kept up with that story, but I've seen some people say that guy got railroaded.
we'll have to see how it progresses. I know he's fighting it.
Yeah.
But Michigan State went to Rutgers last week, and they were kicking the hell out of them. And then all of a sudden, they let them back in the game, and Rutgers came back and won the game. So, Michigan, I don't think much of a problem with Michigan State. Are they going to be pumped because it's Michigan State? Yes, but again, you lose a
That's
game in
that's
that.
in the pregame. That's all about the pregame. And when you get in the game, it's no competition. Michigan State is like a scandal university. If there's a scandal in college sports, and if you had to guess what program it was, Michigan State would be 70, like the survey says.
Yep.
It's the number one answer.
So those are the top 25 matchups, and now I'm going to get to a little bit of a we'll go to some news and notes before we do the against the spread picks. Um, sorry, I just said you talked about the Caleb Williams thing. You got to be some sort of ignorant to say that he wants part stock and ownership in the franchise he's going to. I mean, this is the era that we're in with college football, especially with the NIL. So I don't know if it's just he looked at John Elway's old tapes about him not wanting to go to X, Y, and Z, and you know, I don't know. I just can never wrap my head around. I'm old school, Corey.
I
You know what
feel
I mean?
you.
You know what I mean? I'm old school, so I don't get it. I don't understand it.
I
I
think
just
it's worth the shot if you can pull it off, especially this type of talent. But it's nobody's going to agree to this for the player that hasn't done anything. You know what I'm saying? The audacity of putting it out there is one thing. Do they think this can happen? Probably not. You know, I've seen. I don't want to put people. This young man lives. You can see him out and about in the off season when he's home and stuff like that in the neighborhood and stuff like that. Real nice young man. You don't seem like this to be the case. Knowing kind of how he was brought up and where he comes from, I'm so kind of surprised to hear this. But I think they're taking advantage of an opportunity. They've already made pretty good money as far as NIL and stuff like that. And that's going to be an option for them next year, too, because he can stay and run this thing out and try to get another Heisman Trophy. Like, he really could do that because he's going to make that kind of money in name, image, and likeness. But I think this is a fascinating prospect who I think you'll see everybody like when you get to the end of October in the NFL. Like for example, a team like the Vikings probably gonna throw the towel in. They probably throw the towel in already. You see one more loss from the Giants, they'll probably throw the towel. And teams that you think got the Bears would not if they happen to the every. You can almost say if you don't have Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, you know what I'm saying, a young quarterback like Richardson or something like that, everybody else really should be involved. And he's kind of got the NFL at his doorstep right now. So I think it's truly going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. I think they're angling for the Los Angeles Rams. I think they want a coastal team or a legacy franchise like the Green Bay Packers. I really don't think they want no parts of the Denver Broncos. But I think Sean Payton got back. I think Sean Payton took that job with him in mind. So let's see. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
well, I mean the
Sean
name
Payton loves him, and he
right.
hates Russell Wilson.
Well, the name of his likeness thing is like complete that and the transfer portal has completely changed, and of course, all this realignment stuff and whatnot. But
It's going to be
I
two
heard.
conferences, and but next 5 years you'll have the SEC and the Big Ten, and that'll be it.
Well, I
And the
said,
Big 12, yeah.
I told my esteemed colleague Angel that, and I said this like 5, 10 years ago. Eventually, what you're going to see is one big mega conference. They're going to break away from the NCAA. They're going to do their own thing, and that'll be like the landscape of college football, and everybody else can just fend for themselves. But I heard, and I'm glad I was watching college football all day because it came up in 2 or 3 games where the broadcasters were talking about name, image, likeness. And what you're going to see now, say you have a 5-star recruit, and Alabama's trying to recruit him, Georgia's trying to recruit him, Texas, Oregon, USC. Well, whoever offers them the best NIL deal, where the hell do you think they're going to go? They are going to go wherever the money is. And I see Corey's screen froze. I don't know if he's still there or not. You still there, Corey? No, he'll have to log back in. But for everybody that's tuning in, this is going to be like free agency in college football. It's the name, image, likeness thing has changed the landscape. And again, you got a kid let's say he's a top 10 recruit. And let's say Clemson goes after him, and Alabama, and Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, Oregon, Washington. They're going to go where the money is. Just like the end of a college football season. If you're not in the college football playoff, but you make a fantastic bowl game, but all these players know that they're not headed to a college football playoff, even though they're headed to a great bowl game. What do you think? We've seen it the last 3 or 4 years. What do players do? They skip the bowl game to get ready for the draft. And it's just insane where college football has gone now. And I'm old school. When I was growing up, even up until 20 years ago, it was always everything was regional and it was a beautiful thing. You had the rivalries like 80, 90 years, you know, Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC, the Red River, they're not going to play every year. It'll be a rotating schedule every year. So the Red River Shootout will not have the same chutzpah, if you will, as it once did before. And people come back to me and say, well, there'll be rivalries that are new rivalries to be had. So I'm
Sorry
glad
about
Corey,
that.
that's all
Yeah,
right. I'm
I
glad
know
Corey's back.
internet
We
connections. But listen, this has been happening underneath the surface of college athletics for years now. It's just out in the open now. You know what I'm saying? Now, is there a resolution to this? I think you got to get these trusts out of it. These trusts are what's really gathering up all of this local booster money and telling kids, I'll give you $500,000 to come play here. That's not what it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? And that needs to be looked at and that needs to be outlawed. And now, you hear Greg Shanky say you got to talk to Congress about it. No, just get with the coaches and you can do it without going to Congress. You know what I'm saying?
uh, and then another thing I wanted to get to was Dion Corey.
Yeah.
Um, I listened to his press conference and I went back over it. And you know what I didn't hear?
What?
Do you believe now? Do you believe now? Do you believe now? And I
Yeah.
said this when they were 3-0, and I said, look, they still have to play Oregon, they still have to play USC, I think they still have to play Utah. I said we will know where this program is when they come up against the big boys. Now they made an effort out of it with USC.
Yeah.
Oregon, they got punched in the mouth, they never recovered. Uh, and
Oregon
then
is a perennial national championship
right,
team. That's way above their punching coming from the worst team in FBS to a team that had a 2.5 win total coming into the season, now sitting with 4 wins. And listen, the truth of the matter is this: it's kind of changing college football. He stole the month of September. Well into October is still the talk of college football. You know what I'm saying? Now it's starting to settle down now. I think they knew once they got in the conference, it would be tough. Then they thought that they would play better, particularly against a team like Stanford. But wins versus Arizona and stuff like that, when they step up in competition, they're not ready. Still got to get the trenches together. It's good skill players. They still got to get the trenches together. And there's still some coaching snafus in there as well. Like you can't play Hunter that much. You can't. It's just the truth. It's extremely talented young man, but you can't. He can't play 90 something plays every game. That's getting a little bit out of hand. You know what I'm saying? You got to kind of manage that and stuff like that. But here's what's interesting: the highest bowl game that can take an at-large school just happens to be the Peach Bowl. Colorado, if Colorado can get the 6 wins, they'll be
mhm.
playing on New Year's on December 30th in the Peach Bowl in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Well, here he created this monster. He created the shine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100
And
percent.
he I didn't hear him take any accountability after the Stanford loss. It was, well, kids got to come up to my level, and they got complacent. And this, well, guess what? You had the halftime speech when you were playing USC, and you got them pumped up to play
Yep.
that. You had a 26-0 lead, or whatever the hell it was, and you couldn't have the same kind of speech at halftime. You
Well,
know,
the knock even coming out of Jackson, which probably many people didn't watch that. You know what I'm saying? But the knock against the program was that the kids almost become him. But here's the problem: is the kids are not him. So they take on his personality, they become him, and then when the stakes get high, they realize they're not him. You know what I'm saying? But I think that the program will be successful. I think he'll do good. And I think the first chance he has to get to the University of Miami, because this is about Florida State. This is about Florida State not giving him that job. He wants to get to some place where he can play Florida State. He doesn't even consider himself a Florida State alumni. He just says he just played football there. He's angry with them. He's probably 4 or 5 years in Colorado. Will he ever make a Pac-12 championship? He may get close a couple times, but this is about getting to a Florida program and going up against Florida State.
Some some lighter notes that I took note of is Kansas State is now opting to use both quarterbacks Howard and Johnson at quarterback.
If you got two, you don't got one.
Yeah, I think Howard was the starter last year, and I think it's not gone. I picked Kansas State to repeat in the Big 12 this year. I just thought that
Okay.
because of the season they had last year, it would carry over. It really hasn't. Now they're still having a decent season, but yeah, you have two quarterbacks. You don't have one. It confuses everybody on offense. It's just not a good fit.
No, if you got two, you don't have one. Yeah, that's kind of the way you got to look at that position.
Uh, the only thing I saw about the Ohio State game, the running back Henderson and Egbuka, they may have to sit this game because of their injuries.
That would be horrible. That guy, Egbuka, that guy can play. You know what I'm saying? He is excellent. You talk about the greatness of Marvin Harrison Jr., but when they need a play, they go to him. If he can't play, then Penn State could very well pull out this upset.
Yeah, and Henderson's the
You ever
beast.
notice Harrison Jr., when the bigger the game is, Harrison Jr. always seem to get hurt in big games?
Yeah. Well, the thing about Henderson is he's their bell cow.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that does all the dirt. So if the two of them do not play, then Ohio State, will win the football game. So
It's still a mental thing too. You saw what happened when Florida State went to Clemson earlier this year. They were going to lose that game unless it
yes, they
wasn't for
were.
that late turnover. They were going to lose that game, and
Yep.
it's just sometimes that mental hurdle is more important than the talent hurdle.
And then again, you mentioned it earlier about Beamer breaking his foot after the South Carolina loss. Again, if you listen to his press conference after the game, he pointed the finger everywhere
He did. He
but himself.
normally doesn't do that, and he was very frustrated after that game. Even during the even when what did I see? It must have been the podium. It must have been after the game with the podium. I mean, he immediately, even at halftime, he immediately started pointing the finger, which he normally doesn't do. This was the worst loss of his tenure so far
Mm.
because they were supposed to beat Florida last week, and they are a team that wants to play in a Christmas week bowl game. They want to have. They're doing a very good job in recruiting, and they want to keep that rolling. A loss like that was critical, and now you got to go on the road. Now you're 2-4. You're 2-4 with trips to Missouri and Texas A&M, and still got Clemson on the schedule.
Hey, look, man, I was cussing at the TV at that game. I was like, here we go again. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, but I'll tell you what, I'm still not sold on Billy Napier.
No, but that's who the Carolina fans wanted, Billy Napier.
I know he had great success at Louisiana Tech.
That's Louisiana Tech.
The SEC is a different beast.
Yeah.
Corey, I said this years ago. I said it years ago after Urban Meyer left, and I know he was still where he was at. I thought that Florida should have opened up the checkbook to Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops had Florida ties under Spurrier. He was the architect of that defense, and I just thought that he would have been the right man for the Florida job to come in. He was at Oklahoma. He played in a great conference. He won a national title. He had great defenses there. And I just thought, ever since Urban Meyer's been gone, yeah, Will Muschamp had one good year. But ever since then, it's you know what I mean?
Huh.
So we're gonna get to the against the spread picks. Now
All right.
I am 29-27 7 on the week. And by the way, I got to mention it is the Wustaki authentic hero against the spread money line pick.
All
So
right.
these are mine for the week. I've got Iowa minus the 3.5. Minnesota. I just think Iowa's defense is too stingy. I know that my Iowa doesn't put up a lot of points, but Minnesota can't put together anything offensively. I'm also going with North Carolina minus the 23.5 in Virginia. It's blowout written all over it. I'm taking Oklahoma minus the 19 against UCF. I know UCF is a tough out, but that win over Texas, I think, is going to propel Oklahoma to greater and greater heights. I've had Bowling Green minus the 7.5 against Akron. Akron's just a horrible MAC team. And then the only other one, UNLV, who is undefeated against the spread, I believe. They are only given, it's -8 against Colorado State. Colorado State, anybody that's watched them over the last 2-3 years, yeah, I know they're a 500 team, but they really haven't beaten anybody, so I've got UNLV minus the 8. Your picks, my friend.
I'll take the 4.5 with Penn State. All right. I'll lay the 19 with Oklahoma. I probably would use Alabama in some money line parlays. Probably about the depth of that I get with that. The 7 in South Carolina with South Carolina is interesting, but I probably would lay off of that one right there. I'll lay the first half. Um, I'll lay the first half with Texas. I think. I mean, I'll lay the 23. I don't mind. I don't mind laying big wood. I'll lay the 23 with Texas, and then I will take the 3 with. I'll lay the 3 with Clemson in the game versus Miami. I'll take the 7 with Utah and sprinkle the money line.
All right, so there you have it. Bet with caution, and we are not professional sharks, my friends. We're just giving you our picks. Again, I want to thank Corey for coming on. Great addition. Obviously, he's the Yankees fan. We all have our faults. But
Hey,
again, man, thanks for coming on.
thanks. Good times.
All right. Coming up at 8 o'clock, my man, Angel Martinez, talking hoops. The guest tonight, Gannon Baker. And again, I want to thank Mustaki, Authentic Heroes, and I also want to thank Pete's Famous Pizza. So until next week, enjoy the games, have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next Wednesday.